and welcome back, everybody. We are here in time for our 5th match of the day between South Korea and Italy. I myself am Costa, and once again joined by Mr. Joe himself. How are we doing, Joe? Very, very explosive set last one, no doubt about that, was it?
Definitely an explosive set. It was kind of damage on damage, honestly, like pretty much every single turn. I mentioned this like right after the match had ended, that like it was really just like constant, just bringing in the chair. I'm dealing damage with flare blitz. I'm dealing damage with precipice blades, right? And that's just kind of how the game went, right? So I'm kind of hoping that we see a bit more of a defensive game this time around. But regardless, they have been good games, right? You kind of seen like the skill of really positioning your offensive Pokemon properly to really deal the most damage it can. And I think that's something that we're probably going to continue seeing over the course of the rest of the matches, right? And I'm really, really stoked, specifically for this matchup, because it does have good friend Marco, and also to obviously Korea's hanging on for dear life pretty much, right? Like you need to win all of these games to really stay in. So I'm just incredibly excited for this match.
Well, exactly that. Right now, the score as it stands is 3 versus 1. Italy is winning. We're going to go ahead and check out to see what the situation is right now from the previous matches. Of course, like Joe did just mention, we will be featuring Marco Silva versus Donguk Jung for our 5th out of 7 matches. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for South Korea to be able to try to amount to a comeback, but it is still within the scope of reality. And of course, prompting that, we're going to go ahead and check out the player profiles, go straight into the action, because I know we're all so very excited to check it out. So Marco, from their side of the field, they're going to be rocking that Lunala, Incineroar, Landorus Incarnate, Regieleki, Amoonguss, and Stakataka. And I feel like Marco isn't a stranger to using Lunala then, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, Lunala honestly is just a really consistent option. I mean, I think Marco actually cut the first grassroots event of the entire format with Lunala, right? So definitely probably not too far from what he's used to playing. What's really interesting as well is pretty much seeing the Lunala, Incin, Amoonguss, and Stakataka core, right? This is a core that is very consistent with these Lunala teams. It's pretty much the best partners you can see with Lunala, right? You pretty much get that Trick Room core, you get the ability to go for potentially Pollen Puffs, Spores, Intimidates, and it's just really bulky and really difficult to break through.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, of course, when you go into this situation where, you know, like you've got the Trick Room set up, you've got multiple Trick Room users there, it is very, very good to try to add to the longevity of the actual Trick Room being reset through the progression of the game. But of course, Marco, no stranger to any official, you know, like very highly ranked results that he's been able to achieve. You can see a couple of them there. Everyone at this point, I do believe, already knows of him and has definitely heard of him. So a fantastic player. And we are going to be going over to see their opponent for today, which is going to be Donguk Jung, rocking that Kyogre, Incineroar, Tornadus, Incarnate, Regieleki, Serena, and the Dragapult to round that off.
Right, so we're kind of seeing the, I mean, the standard Kyogre core almost is always that Kyogre, Incin, Tornadus, Serena, right? But then we're seeing a nice inversion on it, right? I mean, Regieleki, obviously a common partner as well. I think what I'm more interested actually is the Dragapult, right? Dragapult able to put out a bunch of damage if it is running that Choice Band set, which you typically see with Pulse, or if you have a Focus Sash Dragapult, right, you're also going to be able to potentially go for Will-O-Wisp, right? So I am really curious to see what set's being run on the Dragapult specifically, because it can pressure Lunala if it's put in the right situation, right? If it's that Choice Band set, you can click Phantom Force, you can kind of target it into the Lunala slot, and you force a swap, right? And you can punish those swaps with Kyogre Water Spouts. So it is really interesting, and I think it can create a lot of good pins on Dongjuk's side.
Yeah, exactly that. And with that being said, ladies and gents, we're going to go straight into the action right now. Of course, we are going to be seeing it from Marco's side of their field. So how are we feeling, Joe, right now going into this? I think, like you said, there's a couple of caveats with the different team components that each of these trainers do have in their arsenal. Dragapult is very, very interesting indeed. Like you said, it does have access to maybe causing a bit of a disruption to Marco's plans in this scenario.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm really interested to see is kind of what Pokemon Marco wants to bring, right? Because typically Regieleki looks really good into something like this, right? You're able to spam Electro Web, you're able to really just consistently lower the speed and like get some good chip on Kyogre and Tornadus, right? Now, potentially, if you know, the opponent's aware of that, then you can also just go for, they can go for something like Instant Dragapult, right? Which is not really something you want to lead Regieleki into. So I am really curious to see how Marco is going to deal with that. You could even go with something safer, where potentially even seeing the Amoonguss in the lead here, right? That can kind of keep you safe from whatever lead you deal with, and always give you that option to really protect whatever you have on the board. So.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think in this scenario, like you mentioned, maybe even having that Amoonguss act essentially as a sponge in a way and kind of threaten with spores, or even we've seen most notably Grass Knots dealing huge amounts of damage onto Kyogres as well. So being able to chip them away essentially is so crucial in this kind of matchup. And maybe even might be the thought that Marco is trying to opt to go for Trick Room being in the back and being able to, once getting rid of all threats, have it safely be brought onto the field, as we're actually going to be seeing the leads right now. Donguk is going to be bringing Kyogre, Regieleki, whilst Marco is going to be bringing their own Regieleki, but accompanied, like we mentioned, with that Amoonguss.
Yeah, honestly, like, I feel like this is a pretty... It's like a bit of a weird lead, but I feel like this is pretty good for Marco because you do have the Amoonguss on the board, right? And like, there's no real way to remove it. Potentially, if there's like a Specs Electro Ball plus Ice Beam, that can maybe remove the Amoonguss, but that's kind of unlikely, right? So I am really interested to see how there's gonna kind of be the, like, how Donguk is gonna adapt, right? Because potentially you want to Volt Switch out here, put yourself in a better position. Even Serena would be in a really good spot here, right? So being able to get that in right now would be really helpful. Kyogre's a little bit risky because you can potentially try and weave in a water spout there, but you have the risk of potentially getting spored, you have the risk of potentially getting hit by an electric move. A lot of things that Kyogre doesn't really like right now threatening it.
Yeah, and I think you do, like you mentioned, have to take into consideration any sort of Electro Web interactions there, as we're actually going to be seeing the Regieleki switch out for that Serena, well noted previously, whilst the Kyogre actually opts to go for the Protect for this turn round. So just a bit of a repositioning situation going on here. Marco, on the other hand, did try to opt to go and successfully connect their Electro Web into the Serena. Will be able to bring its speed down now to -1, but of course the Amoonguss, now that being a Serena, not able to get any sort of sleep-induced statuses going for this turn.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing here, though, is that pretty much, as I had mentioned last turn, like, the Serena got in pretty much for free, right? So now you're in a position where you can really potentially pressure the Regieleki with a, like, a U-turn and a Water Spout, or you can maybe go and target into the Amoonguss with an Ice Beam and a Triple Axle, right? Removing Amoonguss and Eleki here is going to be very crucial to kind of having the rest of a kind of consistent game where you're able to deal damage with that Kyogre. So kind of making the right call here is still very important. I definitely think it's a better position with less risk involved, but it still requires you to get the turn right.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's what it always does come down to, just being able to get that read when you best can. But no switch outs of the Kyogre, just going to take that Thunderbolt square in the face. Very bulky, though. Not what you commonly see being able to take it that well, as Ice Beam will be coming out from the Kyogre, connects to the Amoonguss, and we see the double up now, Joe. Triple Axle coming out, the second successive hit, and the third is able to connect and absolutely get rid of this Amoonguss from game one. Whilst the Regieleki was open to go for that damage into Kyogre, and it just took it so well.
See, that was a tough one to see, right? Because, you know, obviously thinking that maybe you can potentially just double up into this Kyogre pretty safely, and just losing the Amoonguss like that, and it's not something you want to happen early in the game. The nice thing is that you do get a free pivot into the Lunala or the Sakataka, but realistically, like, Serena's hard to break, right? You really need a strong way to be able to remove it quickly, and combined next to Ogre, kind of like creates a problem where it's like, what do you target, right? And that can kind of present, I think, a little more issues for Marco here. The nice thing is that because the Kyogre is so low, it can be pretty much picked off by an Electro Web, right? So it is in a range that's pretty manageable, but yeah, it kind of depends on the swaps here.
Yeah, I would say definitely is the case, as we do, of course, have the Lunala on the field. So in this scenario, you never know if it's Arena may have a Dark type move Axis as well. I think it does get payback, but if we're going to actually see that unfold in this scenario, of course, we'll be able to check out in just a quick moment. But of course, like you mentioned, Serena proven to be quite strong in this current matchup, I think.
Yeah, Serena is a really good option here, right? I mean, if you look at Marco's team, there's only the Incineroar really has something to really pressure it immediately, right? We are going to see the Electro Web, though, come out, absolutely remove this Kyogre here. Kyogre is not enjoying its bath right now, especially when, you know, Regieleki dropped the toaster in there. But the good thing is that now I feel like you're in a position where you've gotten enough damage where Regieleki and Lunala can potentially run through the rest of this team if you position it properly.
Especially as the critical hit was successful with that Electro Web. It may have come into play there, as the Moongeist was enough to pick up the KO onto the Serena. I'm not sure how, of course, what kind of item this Serena may be running. They do commonly use actually Assault Vest, so that may have obviously proven dividends with the Electro Web critical hit. But regardless, we are in the situation we are. Donguk has brought the Incineroar and Regieleki of their own on the field right now versus Marco's remaining 3 Pokemon.
Yeah, this is a bit more of an even position, right? Because now you have Incineroar, which can pressure this Lunala, but there's also Meteor Beam pressure, right? So it's really rough because it can really just be about how you kind of call this Meteor Beam turn, right? If you get the turn right, you're in a really good position because then Lunala really has no way to break through the Incineroar. If you get it wrong, then you're probably going to be, I mean, at this point, I don't even know if you can stop it. Maybe if there's like something like Protect on Incineroar, it's kind of rough, right? Like, it's not much to stop it. I think it's definitely more in Marco's favor at this point. We've really just seen the game kind of turn around.
Oh, yeah, exactly that, because you just saw the swing of momentum being able to be exerted there, as the Regieleki on Marco's side just goes for that Electro Web. It will actually be moving first. Critical hit on that Incineroar. It is not shy with those RNG rolls at all, as of course the speed will be dropped on both that Incineroar and Regieleki, whilst Donguk's Thunder comes out from that Regieleki. It targets down the Regieleki on Marco's side.
Wow.
Really picks up the KO. So much damage, remaining on just 2 HP, as the Lunala will now prompt and go for the Meteor Beam. You see the situation where, of course, that Power Herb is now activated, turning that 2-turn move into that single one. Having that +1 special attack, going for the Meteor Beam, connecting onto the Incineroar, picks up the KO. This Incineroar is down and out for the count in game 1, and Marco just has so much momentum going for him right now, and it seems like this game 1 may just be wrapped up.
Oh, absolutely. Like, at this point, I mean, I think you're asking too much of your Regieleki to really do anything, right? Especially with the Electro Web already coming down. At this point, yeah, Thunderbolt's coming in pretty free. At this point, I think one thing to consider is maybe the Dragapult, or just making sure you have a little bit more to manage that Lunala, right? It seemed like Lunala, we mentioned that Serena was tough to break. It seemed that Lunala was really difficult to break because the Kyogre took too much chip early in the game where it wasn't able to really remove the Lunala.
Yeah, and I think at this point, obviously, Marco didn't even need to try to go for any sort of trick room setup there. They were just able to go ahead and highly benefit from the amount of damage output they were able to exert. And let's, of course, make note there, Joe, that the lead did work out quite well. We saw that the Kyogre just didn't protect, and it just sat there and took the Thunderbolt. So it was quite interesting to see how that paved out. Sure, at first you'd think, oh, wow, you know, like Donguk was able to get off a lot of momentum there. But then again, that Kyogre just took so much damage. Like you said, it just wasn't able to add to that longevity on their side of the field.
Yeah, it just really shows that it goes, you know, it's more important than just the turn 1, right? The turn 1 can look really good for you, even the turn 2 can look really good for you. But if you don't really capitalize off of that momentum, you're not really going to be putting yourself in the best position for late game, right? So one thing I'd like to see maybe is a little bit more kind of aggressive play from Donguk right out the gate, right? Because you're going to be able to kind of pressure at Lunala, break the Shadow Shield, get a bunch of damage down, and maybe give Marco less opportunities to really pivot.
Yeah, and would you say that Dragapult may even be an option for Donguk to try to bring in this scenario?
Yeah, I would really actually like to see Dragapult here if it is running that Choice Band set, right? Because then you can go for something like Phantom Force, you can go for a bunch of damage. It's just, I think it'd be a really cool option here. Also, too, I just like Dragapult, so, you know, it'd kind of be cool to just see it pop up there. But I do think you can get a lot of valuable pins out of it. Also, too, a thing of note is that it resists Regieleki's hits, and it also doesn't get dropped by Electro Web, right? So there's so much going for it in this matchup.
Yeah, it really is, because it highly benefits from that clear body ability, like you mentioned. So it is definitely a candidate to try to bring in this scenario, because as we did see, of course, Marco was just able to go ahead and, you know, just well over time, go ahead and make sure they got the hits that they needed to, so they could try to force a scenario where essentially Donguk did not have as many resources available to themselves. And let's not forget, Marco did still have an option of Trick Room if they so wanted to try to go and opt for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we will see on leads here, you know, maybe if there was a bit of an adjustment, but I do think the Regieleki and Kyogre lead wasn't necessarily a bad option, right? Like, you do get the Electro, you do get the Water Spout, but I think it's more so about kind of adjusting to what Marco is bringing in this situation. I think if you laid Dragapult here, you'd be in a really good situation, but we are going to see the Tornadus come instead, potentially to deal with the Amoonguss lead, but we are going to see a Regieleki and Lunala lead, almost perfectly countering that lead.
All right, so we are going to be seeing a very hyper speedy, should I say, lead from both sides of the field. We're going to be seeing, of course, the Tornadus has access to its Prankster ability, which does mean the Tailwind is more than imminent for it to be set up from Donguk's side in this turn one, of course, as the Regielekis, they're probably going to be going for Electro Web. We don't know if this Lunala does have actually access to Wide Guard here, but I'm not sure if that would be wise. I think Lunala may want to either go for Trick Room or even try to go for direct damage here, Joe.
Yeah, at this point, I think on Marco's side, you're pretty safe to just go for Electro Web, right? We are going to see Tornadus Protect, though. That can actually potentially play a big role in this. But if there was a double into the Regieleki here, potentially, which we're not going to see, it could have really punished that play.
Wow, it really could have, as we do see Lunala actually go for the Protect following the Tornadus' fashion. Electro Web does come out from Marco's side. It does seem like both trainers may have been opting to go for a similar strategy, but Marco's Regieleki once again proving to be such a valuable asset to his team, gets another critical hit on the Regieleki from that Electro Web, and more notably, Donguk not successfully able to get any sort of attack off, as they opted to try to go for the Volt Switch into Lunala, but of course, we're unsuccessful and now are slower.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a different game than we saw the first game, right? The first game we kind of saw immediately trying to get into position, putting on a bunch of pressure with Kyogre. We're going to see both players really play it a bit more passively this time around. We're going to see the Regieleki swap out here going into Instant, potentially trying to eat up a Moongeist Beam that's potentially coming its way. It could take a Meteor Beam, though, for its troubles, so you don't really want to put Incineroar in a position where you're going to lose it immediately, right? So we are going to see the Wakanberry come out here as well, so it should allow Tornadus to at least take the Volt Switch.
Oh, it definitely does. It's gonna be able to take that and have more of half of its HP remaining available to it. But more importantly, like you said, Joe, the Volt Switch will allow the Regieleki to get that pivot action going. So we're gonna be seeing Marco bring a new fresh Pokemon of their choice right now, which does seem to be the Stack Attacker on the field. Of course, Donguk did switch out their Pokemon there with their Regieleki. They're able to get that Incineroar onto the field. It will be threatening this Lunala, especially as the Icy Wind from the Tornadus is gonna be breaking the Shadow Shield of this Lunala. Of course, this Lunala, now that it is no longer at 100% of its HP, it's not gonna be able to reduce any sort of damage by half. And yeah, we saw the Trick Room being set up, and this is the situation Marco wants to be in right now.
Yeah, Icy Wind in the Trick Room, probably not the best turn you'd like to see, right? That could actually probably hurt you a lot more, because I think it even, I mean, Stack Attacker's Gyro Ball is already so strong, right? But like, even that, like, now Lunala potentially underspeeds Incineroar, which is another problem you have to deal with. There's just a lot you have to worry about now.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. The fact that the Lunala will more than likely be guaranteed to underspeed this Incineroar if it is, of course, trained to be a slower speed set, given the fact that Marco does have those Trick Room options on their side of the field.
Yeah, I think that one potential thing that Donguk has to try and do to recover is maybe position the Incineroar, like swap it out, bring in something that won't get KO'd immediately, or sack off the Regieleki in this case, right? It really depends. It's kind of rough, right? Because you kind of brought a Tailwind mode into a Trick Room team, right? So you're kind of going to struggle a little bit kind of dealing with that. But Body Press just comes in. That's going to do a lot to Regieleki. Doesn't pick it up, though.
Well, no, it doesn't pick it up. The Regieleki is going to be able to survive at that slither of HP remaining there, as the Meteor Beam now will be the move of choice from the Lunala. We see, of course, once again, the Power Herb interaction. Meteor Beam actually does try to target down that Incineroar. It will be able to successfully get the KO onto Regieleki, which will, of course, allow Donguk to bring in any new Pokemon of their choice, which may likely be that Incineroar once again being able to come onto the field and not only get an Intimidate drop onto that stack attacker, but maybe threaten the Lunala. Now that the Power Herb has been used, the Lunala will have to wait 2 turns if it wants to try to go for a Meteor Beam.
See, one thing I've really enjoyed about this game that we've seen so far is kind of how we're just seeing the Lunala play very slow, trying to get itself in a perfect position, and through those slow, like small turns where you're kind of building yourself up a lead, it's putting Donguk on the back foot, right? Because you're not really able to get any damage off. You're constantly forced to pivot here. A lot of Marco's bonds honestly haven't taken too much damage, right? So at this point, I think it's trying to get in a position where you can deal a bunch of damage and you maybe force Marco to be on the back foot there. But because both the Stack Attack and the Lunala are hit with an Icy Wind, I think that makes it even more difficult than it originally was going to be.
Yeah, I think it completely changes the gameplay scenario as that completely shifts the board from both sides of the field. Donguk cannot try to pivot and take it, or not pivot, but more likely take advantage of the speed interactions there. As the Kyogre is opted and free to go for damage right now if it can successfully survive this turn. But we're going to be seeing the Tornadus now switch out for the Incineroar. You see Donguk wanting to try to stall out this Trick Room as best as possible. The Tornadus having that utility of going for the Protect is something to take into consideration, as like we said, Donguk is now going to actually opt to go for Protect on their Kyogre. So wanting to stall out the Trick Room is the name of the game if you are Donguk, as the Body Press goes into the Incineroar. Not enough to pick up a KO, but my lord, it's so close to, and this Moongeist Beam, a +1 special attack, may just be enough to do so, as it does target it, and it does successfully pick it up. Critical hit though, I'm not sure if that does actually matter unless this Incineroar is an Assault Vest variant.
I'm pretty sure in most situations, even if it was Assault Vest to pick up, but with Assault Vest it'd definitely be close, right? Obviously we'll never know at this point. At this point, I think Marco's position is just incredibly good, right? Like, you have Regieleki, you have a Moongus in the back, which just beats a Kyogre. All you need to do at this point is remove Tornadus, and the game's essentially sealed, right? It's kind of tough, right? South Korea wanting to stay in this, but this is a really difficult game. I'm not too sure that there's a way to come back from this, but obviously you have to play your heart out. You know, you have to really just do your best to try and put yourself in the position to win the game. Maybe with a bunch of protects and a little bit of luck, there is a way back in the game, though.
There definitely is. If there's a Protect, there is a way, that is for sure. As of course Donguk is hoping to try to keep South Korea in this battle. Ladies and gents, this may be a potential game changer, or should I say game ender in this scenario. The fact that Marco still has Trick Room up, there are no Protects, Joe. Body Press comes out from the Stack Attack that connects into the Kyogre, does deal a big amount of damage there, but the Lunala follows suit. It goes for the Moongeist Beam. Which target is it going for? As we're going to be seeing it connect to the Kyogre. Doesn't pick up the KO. It does not. Just misses as the Hurricane comes out from the Tornadus, connects into the Lunala. It will, of course, not deal as much damage. No, but that is not what you want to see if you're Donguk right now. Water Spout, the fact that you are at such a small HP, you know, like range, does no damage whatsoever. If there was Origin Pulse, that may have been the option there, but I'm not sure if Donguk could have gone for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, now that we're going to see the Water Spout come out here, now it's a very, very bad position, right? You can potentially try and get a double Protect. But at this point, right, like, you've taken so much damage on that Kyogre, it's hanging on. Honestly, basically, like, even if you just blew on it, it'd probably, you know, just fall over. It's really tough. I mean, I think that was the opportunity to really potentially make something happen. But, oh, are we going to see the double Trick Room?
Yeah, yes, we are. Double Trick Room in anticipation of the double Protect. Unfortunate for Donguk, not having a lot of options there. And if you weren't aware, ladies and gents, that little trick of going for Trick Room with both of your Pokemon automatically brings out a whole new range of Trick Room turns to be available for yourself, as you're resetting the Trick Room and then you're re-enabling it. So very, very smooth play there from Marco. And we are going to be seeing Donguk forfeit their match, which does of course mean, ladies and gents, Italy has now has essentially sealed their position and their spot in the finals. They are your first finalists in such a dramatic state of affairs versus South Korea. It is 4-1 right now. We do still have a couple more matches that we are going to be featuring, but as of this moment, Italy are in the finals, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, can I just say what an incredibly well played game, right? I mean, I was a little worried when I saw the Amoonguss get lost in that game one, but able to recover from that and just really capitalize with the offense that Lunala could offer next to Regieleki. And then right after that, we see in the game two that now there's basically a new game plan where you're able to immediately pressure with that Lunala Regieleki. It really just kept Donguk on the back foot the whole time, and like it was a really well executed game, and I think that a final like double trick room play at the end was like the perfect play to really like seal that off and like show how like well played that was.
It really was. I mean, you just had all of the momentum coming out from Marco's side, quite literally, with the interactions of game one, with the speeds being dropped. You know, you had the electrowebs going off, and then essentially you were just able to whittle down Donguk's Pokemon to the point where, you know, Donguk felt like, okay, game two, I want to try to change things up. I'll bring my Tornadoes. I'll go for the Tailwind mode because Marco's clearly threatening with the electrowebs, that damage, and the speed control on their side of the field. But Marco said, no, you know what? I've got that Trick Room mode available to myself. Let me just go ahead and completely utilize it. And they're able to essentially sweep that game just because of the fact that Donguk didn't have the correct Pokemon in that scenario and couldn't stall out the Trick Room turns in time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and no shame to Donguk either. I mean, you played the best you could in that situation, right? Like, it's really tough. I really would have loved to see Dragapult there. I think it could have made such a difference because you would have had the option of maybe Phantom Forcing or going for U-turn, breaking the, the Lunala Shadow Shield, putting a bit more pressure. But obviously, at this point, right, like, I think both players knew what they were doing. You know, it was just more so about kind of the leads being very important as well, right? Like, kind of getting the lead right. And I think Marco getting the lead right game one just put him, or game two, put him in such a good position.
Yeah, and I mean, huge congrats, of course, to Marco and Italy for being able to progress onwards. Huge commiserations to both South Korea and Donguk right there. Very well played from both players. Such an entertaining set and spicy, hypey one. That's exactly what you want to see in this semi-final stage that we're at. But do not go anywhere, ladies and gents. Sure, Italy have now sealed their final spot, but we do have 2 more matches remaining. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back in just a few moments.